This episode is brought to you by Google Gemini. With the Gemini app, you can talk live and have a real-time conversation with an AI assistant. It's great for all kinds of things, like if you want to practice for an upcoming interview, ask for advice on things to do in a new city, or brainstorm creative ideas. And by the way, this script was actually read by Gemini. Download the Gemini app for iOS and Android today. Must be 18 plus to use Gemini Live.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to the Sox Machine podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's December 30th, 2024, as we record this last episode of the 2024 calendar year. Wow, was 2024 a very eventful year for the Chicago White Sox and also for Sox Machine. In this episode, we'll be sharing our favorite moments of 2024 and look ahead to 2025 by dishing out our resolutions for the White Sox and maybe share a few personal ones too. Joining me are Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. And Jim, I'll start with you. 2024, like I said in the intro, very eventful year, a historic year covering the Chicago White Sox, but it was also a very eventful year for Sox Machine too.
It was. It's a shame that an eventful year for Sox Machine was wasted on the 2024 White Sox. Ideally, the forces would align a little bit better, and readers and listeners would be rewarded with a halfway decent team to follow with our fire hose coverage versus one that they wanted to avoid largely by Memorial Day. So, yeah, it's a mixed bag. We did get to witness history. You know, not everybody can say that. Even people like, when the 1962 Mets happened, there was no MLB TV. There's no way to follow it. There's no way for rubberneckers really to show up and say like, oh, this is pretty gross. You basically had to wait till the Mets came to town. And otherwise, like, maybe the Sunday paper would have it, but otherwise, like, there would be no way of really following the White Sox like we did. And so that's something. And dreadfully boring. The novelty would wear off pretty quickly if 2025 starts the way 2024 did. So here's hoping that there's just more competence across the board. And even if it is like another 100 loss team, there are more interesting 100 loss teams than the one we just witnessed. Even the last two we just witnessed, I guess, unless you count the Lance Lynn, Joe Kelly, God, are these awful people, as well as disappointing ball players. The whole discourse going on, which was, I guess, mildly amusing for about a month. But that's where we're at. That's the fate we have chosen. And so we have to roll with it, and roll ahead we will.
How about you, James? What were some of your favorite moments covering the 2024 White Sox?
I saw today the John Greenberg was like doing some Twitter poll about like worst moments or most embarrassing moments. And he just kind of hand waved and gave like, well, any Sox moment would fit the bill, which felt like collapsing the entire year of my experiences of something truly horrific to lay eyes on into one, like, yeah, it's all bad, whatever. When I feel like it, as we wrote several times, the Sox were innovators in the way they lost. Even the game that won, the Benetti walk-off against the A's, I was like off that night for an event. I was going to a work event with my wife and then a concert afterwards. And I checked my phone right before we got in the car. And I saw that they had gone ahead and they're putting Justin Anderson in the ninth. And by the time I turned on the car and the radio came on, like the bases were loaded. And it just struck me like that was something that stood out. A lot of focus has been on the Milwaukee series, especially like the FAM slide, and that was certainly intense. And like the collective moment of him striding out, possibly to go murder someone, as far as we knew, as we all stood around and said like, well, I guess no follow-ups then, as he left. That was good. the fact that we were all standing right next to Paul DeYoung's locker waiting for Bam, to the point that Paul DeYoung thought we were waiting for him, and then asked us if we want to do an interview, and then we were too sheepish to say no, and then we wound up interviewing Paul DeYoung about the last game of Milwaukee for 2 minutes for no reasons no one really understood. The Milwaukee series is great. The first game, and like there was stuff like there's kind of whispers about like their positioning being off in the game one, because they gave up 23 hits. Almost all of them were like singles to the infield. And it was something that like manifested later, where like I remember asking Fetty about it, and he's like very polite and very like takes every question in good faith, and he's giving like a respectful answer. Just like, yeah, so you always got to look at everything. Teams change up their tendencies. Sometimes they change their plan based on how you're going to defend them. At the same time, I don't think I should really complain about positioning too much on the night we gave up 23 hits. And just kind of the way he said it, I don't know, it just really tickled me. I was thinking of every Garrett moment I had. I don't know how many of the stories I've already told, but like there's one time I was like asking about like when he was throwing like a bullpen or something like that, or like how his sinker was coming, and we like talked. We didn't interview, but we like he gave an update about that things are progressing, and I remember walking back to like where the other reporters were, and them asking like Vinny asking me like, so how's Garrett doing, or what did Garrett say? And I started to explain it. He stopped me. He's like, we all know he's the loudest person in the world. I realized like I was just interviewing Garrett Crochet in a clubhouse where nothing else is going on. And basically, like 15 reporters are listening to me and Garrett talk because Garrett's voice through everything. But the Garrett story I thought about, I don't know if I've told on here already, and thus making it boring, was someone was asking him about his walkout song when he's pitching, and it's the Rooster, which is the same thing that Carlos Rodon came out to. And the three of us, me, the other reporters, Sam from New York Magazine, who did the feature on him, was saying, like, I was asking him how he did it, and Garrett was just like, oh yeah, I think I just Googled like cool walkout songs. And that came up. I really, he told me early in the season that I thought I was going to have two, because I wanted to have that, and then I wanted to cut into every time we touched by Cascada, because I thought that'd be funny. To which, like, yes, that would be funny, but also, like, this is like your fourth year in the majors. You think you have two songs? What are you talking about? But then I had said, like, I had asked him, like, the first time he did in the season, like, was that like an homage to Rodon? Because that's what he came out to. And he's like, oh, did Rodon come out to that? I didn't even know. So when he was talking to Sam in like September, he's like, somebody asked me like this brutal question at the start of the year, like, was I copying Rodon by doing that? I'm like, I wouldn't do that. And I was like, Garrett, that was me. He's like, oh man, very funny person. I know all my like stories about him make him sound like kind of a goof, but it's more like he's a smart guy who's like willing to make himself look goofy a lot and play it up for laughs. So we'll miss him a lot. Any happy memories of 2024 have to be wistful. So talking about Garrett Crochet, I think fit.
How do you think Garrett's going to handle the Boston media, James, especially for what could be kind of a contentious season for everyone following the Red Sox as they try to get themselves back into being considered a serious contender to win the American League East?
I mean, I think if he's dealing, especially that he's in his role now, and he's starting, he's happy, and he's in a big market. He's pretty straightforward about when he doesn't play well, and he's pretty willing to talk about performance stuff. I think constantly talking about like trades and stuff he really couldn't provide any more insight on war on him. But I think Boston media can be hard on a lot of people. There's a lot of guys that, like, I got warned were jerks or cold, and then you come over here and it's like, oh, they're just not in Boston anymore. They're fine. Craig Krimble didn't like actively seek doing interviews, but he certainly didn't like hate or was rude about anything. So it just felt like he's probably fine in a small market, pretty good. After hearing that he was like a grumpier person in Boston. Benintendi will talk to you whenever you want. He's not going to promise you interesting content, but he'll be courteous, and he'll talk about stinking, which is what he's had to talk about a lot. And he'll talk about being pretty good. So most of the Boston guys that come over have been pretty cool. I think, especially like, you ride the highs and lows, but like if he's dealing and he's a new guy, they'll love him. He's built to like, gab and joke and be at the center of attention and hold court. So it could go really, really well. And I don't think it'll go that bad, even if he struggled or hurt. He'll be courteous, he'll be professional, he'll say what he can say. It might wear him a little bit, but he had to be like the talk about a team that was both going to trade him and losing all the time all this year. I don't know. Like, obviously we're nicer, we're smaller than the Boston media contingent, but it's got to be a better situation, at least for him to talk about there. So I think it should be pretty good. Maybe he'll be a color commentator in 10 years there.
Yeah, Chris Sale, I think, provides a template because I think they're cut from similar cloth, I guess, pardon the pun, when it comes to Sale, but they're both, immensely talented. They're both willing to be honest in both ways. Like if they feel like they're dealing, they will not make any kind of have any false modesty about how well they're doing. They will say when they're feeling it. Likewise, if they stink, they will be the first ones to point the finger at themselves. And also, I think, I don't think Crochet is particularly active on social media, which I always thought was Sale's greatest strength. Like Sale was insane, but he also wasn't out there. Like he didn't have a Twitter account, really didn't have an Instagram account. That video surfaced of him dancing at the wedding. Nobody could tweet him about it. Like he's just unreachable. So I think like he was friendly, to a person, good with fans, and that was good enough. And then like when his arm betrayed him, he had to be a disappointment in that way. But when you're injured, that's another level of being removed from direct criticism. So I think like Crochet probably will handle it just as well. One thing about 2024 I kind of will miss is that with Walker McKinven now aboard, I guess maybe you can like, once you get to know him a little bit, you can ask him like, so that series, was as weird for you as it was for us in terms of on the dugout, or just what were you seeing on that side? The other one was Pedro Grifol. I will miss him a little bit because, well, one, the Eclipse answer was just the one of the funniest just instances of just, showing his ass that I've ever seen in terms of like, oh, you're just saying what you think sounds good. Once you kind of unlocked that, or at least I unlocked that in, that simple of language, it became a lot easier to understand what he's all about. Like said the effing flat game with Kyle Bradish and then said, I'm doubling down. It's like he Googled how to double down. And the first result was say you're doubling down. And then he went with it. I'll miss that a little bit just because I feel with managers, like I'm thinking back to Ricky Renteria, same thing. Like it took a couple of years to understand what he was saying, and then kind of like in Miles Davis speak, like what he wasn't saying. And Grifol like basically had all his keys by May, if not before. So it was nice from a distance to be able to interpret what he's saying and feel like you have like 80% of it, kind of like reading lips. I can't read lips. Reading the text and reading the subtext, and Grifol's subtext was almost the same size font as the text because he just couldn't really modulate it that well. It was pretty satisfying to kind of be able to see into the future a little bit when it came to his decision making. So we have to learn that all over again with Will Venable, and from I guess the initial media sessions with Venable, seeing him a little bit at the winter meetings, like it feels like it's going to be a tougher egg to crack, and figuring out like exactly what he means, what he's not saying, and it'll be something to figure out. But I'll miss like the third year of manager where you kind of know what's going on, and the conversation, even if it's one-sided from a distance, is a little bit easier to parse.
Yeah, what did he say at the winter meetings, James? That his managerial style is empathetic?
Kindness, I think, was the other thing.
Yeah, empathetic and kindness.
Lead with kindness and empathy. We got it.
Yes.
Not yet like an acronym that we could put on shirts, but...
Not yet. Not yet. You know what? It'll be a Care Bear. It'll be the caricature of Will Venable's head on a Care Bear and the Sox logo.
The therapy dog goes out to make pitching changes.
You're having a bad game, Jonathan Cannon. Go talk to Spike, our new lab. It'll make the clubhouse more fun. with Venable, like what you were mentioning, Jim, I was going to get at, like, Chicago fans are so angry right now, just at everything, because everything is falling apart. Nobody's good. And Venable, you know, if the White Sox struggle out of the gate, be like, hey, we just need some time. We'll find our heading. Nobody having the patience for that right now as a Chicago sports fan, because everyone's heads are falling off, and there's no future. There's no end in sight to this misery. It's awful right now in Chicago sports. So we'll see on how Will Venable himself makes that transition, getting used to what is a very dour Chicago sports scene. But some of my favorite moments of 2024, I don't have many regarding the White Sox. All of the positive ones are things that we were involved with. The opening day eve live show at Remova. That was fantastic to see so many people show up. It's really cool to see Sox Machine on a theater marquee. Fingers crossed we'll have more information for you guys about the 2025 edition. The Milwaukee tailgate, James mentioned that weekend. Very fun weekend as a fan to go there. The tailgate, the only day it rained, what was mostly a beautiful weekend weather-wise in Milwaukee, but huge thanks to the Chicago Sports Bums and our friends from the 108. Tailgating are taking up a large section of the parking lot with all of our tents to keep everyone dry. The Kansas City road trip lived up to the hype. The Negro League Museum is absolutely wonderful. You got to visit. If you've never been to Kansas City, you got to put that on your must-to-do list. The barbecue's fantastic. Everything worked out with the coach bus. We didn't leave anyone behind at Kauffman Stadium. Even though the White Sox didn't play very good baseball, it was a great experience at Kansas City. And, of course, James joining Sox Machine. I saved the best for last for you, James. Favorite moments of 2024.
Hey, it's Austin James. If you're like me, trying to live your best life while living with diabetes, you can relate to worrying if you're doing a good job managing your diabetes. I use the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor to get real-time glucose readings and see the impact of every meal and activity to make better decisions. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor can help me live life with diabetes on my own terms, and it gives me more time for the things I love, like being a dad and a musician. Now this is progress. Learn more at freestylelibre.us.
For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You might say all kinds of stuff when things go wrong, but these are the words you really need to remember. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. They've got options to fit your unique insurance needs, meaning you can talk to your agent to choose the coverage you need, have coverage options to protect the things you value most, file a claim right on the State Farm mobile app, and even reach a real person when you need to talk to someone. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Moving over to our New Year's resolutions for the 2025 White Sox, and maybe we'll share a few personal ones that we want to achieve for this upcoming year. And of course, you, the podcast listeners, you can let us know, reach out to us on social media. We're at Sox Machine on Twitter. We're also at soxmachine.com on Blue Sky to share some of your resolutions as well. Regarding either the White Sox or personal ones that you have, you could also put them in the comments section too on soxmachine.com. I'm going to just read off a few because some did reach already. I asked on social media, on Twitter and Blue Sky, what are some of your New Year's resolutions for the White Sox? Our friend Michael Piff over at WGN tweeted at us, wants to feel better about taking my daughter to her first White Sox game. So congrats, Michael. And I hope that goes well for you. If the White Sox don't win, at least she has fun. So I think that's a good goal. As in Rec tweeted at us, May 2025 end with the Chicago White Sox majority owner being Melody Hobson. So that's already one vote for a new owner. Rodog on Twitter. More Tim Elko in 2025. How about that, James? What's the likelihood we're going to see more Tim Elko in 2025?
Not going to get less Tim Elko. I could see him cracking the majors. They're not like, super deep at that position or anything. And he's already had hot stretches at AAA. I think the plate discipline and raw power is there that like he can be a guy who either, becomes specialist against lefties or something like that, or just is capable of getting hot for weeks at a time, but also is capable of, running into protracted swing and miss issues. And, he's probably already proved us wrong a little bit by getting this far and being this good at AAA. So it remains to be seen if he can continue to improve. In zone miss is like kind of the big deal breaker right now, but he's improved a lot of things around it. Who knows? But I think seeing him debut is a reasonable expectation.
Another tweet that we got, J Money High Tech tweeted at us, one hitting prospect, just one, makes tangible progress as a major leaguer during the season, whether that's Colson Montgomery, Kyle Teal, someone, anyone, please develop into something. Jim, what's the likelihood of that happening, where one of these hitting prospects at the end of 2025, we have confidence that, hey, this can be an above average major leaguer?
I would say that before the Boston trade, a little bit dicey if you're counting on Colson Montgomery, shaking off his, limited ability to drive pitches in the zone, or like a very narrow hot zone to really drive the baseball, and figuring, or like counting on him turning it around, or Brian Ramos just overcoming his up and down year last year. Edgar Caro handling major league catching duties and hitting, and making sure that he bounces back smoothly from his back injury. Like, the players on hand all had one warts, whether it's smaller or sizable. Like, there's always one reason to be concerned, like just one thread you could pull at, and if you were like just fixated on it, you could just make the whole thing unravel. So having some fresh blood in there, I think somebody like Chase Mydroth coming in and being somebody who can maybe provide some immediate returns, even if they're not like fantastic returns, just somebody who shows command of the strike zone and is able to provide competitive at-bats to keep people from getting too impatient about Kyle Teal, and even more impatient about Braden Montgomery, given that we don't know exactly how long his developmental track is going to be. Like, I think that's pretty important. That trade helped a lot when it comes to just providing more hitters who can possibly just step up in a way that provides some major league returns and take some of the stress off, basically entirely Colson Montgomery and Edgar Caro, and just anybody else would be a pretty significant surprise.
Ian's Arena on Twitter tweeted at us, try to keep every home game competitive. I think that's a big one. As a season ticket holder, try to keep every home game competitive.
Every game?
How about series?
We're already backing down.
I mean, competitive in the sense like no one leaves the field and just like go home early.
How about try to keep it within a safe situation for the opposing team for home games?
I would just like not have a position player pitch for a whole home schedule. That would be like probably still unlikely, but also like an accomplishment.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. And again, he wants to see some of the new prospects hit in the major leagues. That teen Sox fan, for irony, lose 100 or fewer games. But his honest one is see strong performances from at least 5 top prospects at the major league level. I don't know if we'll see that many prospects considered having top. Over on Blue Sky, Mark Bussey, some funny ones. Lose in grander, more spectacular fashion. Have the White Sox lost at a pitch clock violation yet, James?
I mean, I think the interference rule in a pop-up that...
Oh, yes! I forgot about that.
Kind of almost one-ups it. Like, for obscurity, for watching Andrew Vaughn like slump his shoulders like demonstratively from afar, almost like it's almost more conventional to lose in a pitch clock violation. Though it seems like if that's going to happen to a team, it would be them. I wonder if they can really match like they were doing crazy things 2-3 times a week this past season, and we just got desensitized to these. Like, we can't even remember. Like, I'm just looking at random like series, and like as I was going over this beforehand, I was like, I know something wacky happened in that 4-game sweep. That's against the Tigers at home, but hell if I can remember anything other than like Jace Young's brother came and watched him in the suite next to the press box the whole time. But yeah, I don't know what they could do short of like the foul pole collapsing onto the field type of like situation. It's like spectacle.
They didn't lose on a pitch clock violation, but they lost because Gregory Santos balked because he was racing the pitch clock.
Was that last year or the year before?
So they lost on a walk-off balk. That's 2 years ago. Yeah. But that was, it wasn't 2024, but it was a case of like they almost did, but had he not noticed the pitch clock like down to 2, he probably would have let it lapse. Instead, he balked the runner home. So, yeah.
Chris, though, on Blue Sky, more of a personal resolution. I don't want to stress about the White Sox in 2025. Teams in a rebuild, and they finally recognize that, unlike in 2024. I'm ready to see prospects learn the job. The White Sox try new, weird things and just see it all unfold. Good vibes only this year. And I think that's a good approach, Jim, from Chris's perspective, like his personal resolution. I'm not going to stress about the White Sox because I'm not hoping that they bounce back from a 61 and 101 loss season. I know that they're going to be bad, so I'm just here for the baseball and see if they actually do improve. And if they don't, well, then I knew that they were going to be bad anyways.
Yeah, it's a serenity prayer. Like it's basically like he already knows what he can control, what he can't control, and knows the difference. So that's most of the battle. And now it's just a matter of like, so that's a great thing about baseball is that so many games, I guess, that was the bad thing last year, so many games, but in a positive spin, so many games, it's all a matter of tone, but you can just drop in, drop out, turn on Len Casper if you're driving around, turn off Len Casper if he's got nothing good to report, and turn him back on, give another shot. But yeah, it feels like, I guess one of the things I'm wondering about is with Jimenez out, with Moncada gone, we'll see what happens with Luis Robert, although he really wasn't a part of the problem to the same extent. He's just part of the same era. But just, I wonder if there will be any benefit from just, it's kind of like an internal change of scenery or just the change of the conversation that's just not fixated on who's not around or when they'll be coming back or what kind of effort they're showing or, just that kind of cloud is gone. The disappointment's gone. Nothing has taken its place. Like it's a case of just, Mike Tauchman is not going to make people forget that Eloy Jimenez, his tenure was such a disappointment. But I just wonder, is there any value to having the conversation change? Because it was like 2, 3, 4 years in some, cases of just having the same issues over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm curious. I'm open-minded when it comes to just whether there will be any kind of relief from just having other players to talk about, other problems to talk about, other struggles, and then hopefully some successes as well.
So those were the ones that we received on social media. Again, let us know what your guys' resolutions are for the White Sox for the upcoming 2025 calendar year. Again, it could be anything, whether it's on or off the field. So now it's time for us to share our resolutions for the 2025 White Sox. James, I guess I could start with you. Do you got one off the top of your head? What's a New Year's resolution that you have for the White Sox in 2025?
I mean, teams really try hard at defense. It's not like college basketball where like you can say defense is like effort related. So it's not easy to just say like average defense, but it is, to me, amazing that getting to like 20th best defense or like being an average base running team would, I think, do a lot to make the cartoonish low ends of the win probability, win projections not accessible. Like I think you really have to kind of fumble your way past 110 really aggressively. And it's seeming like, yes, I don't think there's the talent present to be like a great defensive team or even maybe like a meaningfully above average one, but they've been like noticeably less than the sum of their parts for years running now defensively. They have a new front office. They have a new coaching staff, one that's now entirely been picked by the front office, or at least like it's all been hired since the new front office took over. They've talked about this investment in resources or infrastructure and how more R&D is going to get involved. They've dealt with more public kind of criticism of what they're doing position wise and what research are putting into their defense, it seems like something that even within not expecting like a contending team on the field or that level of talent, that they should, one way they could demonstrate where they're going is just producing like a competent defense, a defense that's not like dragging them down the worst league, that's making like pitching signings not work, or throwing off the entire balance of the team all the time, forcing your young hitters to take so many like meaningless at bats with no stakes, because the game's already out of reach because of defense. That seems like an early way they could demonstrate that things are moving the right direction. If like a team that doesn't look good defensively, but doesn't need to be 30th with a bullet year in, year out, like plays to that level. If they're the 20th best defense, I'll be like, aha, something's happening here. Like that's the way it's been the last couple of years. And it would probably keep them, like, as much as you don't think this team like looks on paper that much better, probably keeps them well away from 121 if they just are not the worst defense in baseball. Which some metrics had them 29th last year, so maybe I should ease up. But we know what we're talking about here. That's my resolution to them. Like, do the baseball things that none of us think about a little bit better, so that we're not constantly watching this team like, all right, they're bad, but how are they so bad?
So to James's point, using the fielding Bible standards on team defensive runs saved, 20th last year in Major League Baseball would have been one defensive run saved above 0. And that was the Baltimore Orioles and the Houston Astros. They were both worth 1. The Toronto Blue Jays had the best defensive team last year. They were 102 in the positive for defensive runs saved. The Cleveland Guardians, Los Angeles Dodgers, Milwaukee Brewers, Detroit Tigers round out the 5, and those were playoff teams in 2024. The Chicago White Sox, again, so Cleveland, 89 positive defensive runs saved last year. The White Sox, negative 87. Almost the complete opposite of the Cleveland Guardians. So James is asking, get closer to 0. Maybe not be at 89 like Cleveland was last year. That might be a stretch, but get closer to 0.
Given how bad the Blue Jays were last year, I think if you took away their defense and put the White Sox defense, is it a stretch to say that would have been the end of baseball in Canada? Like, Trudeau comes out and says, like, the experiment is over. We need to move on from this as a nation.
3 teams playing in Nashville next year.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Nashville, Franklin. What's another Nashville suburb that they could have a team?
Murfreesboro.
Antioch,
yep.
So that's a good one, James. I like it. I like it. How about you, Jim? Do you have a New Year's resolution for the 2025 White Sox?
You know, going back to the idea of, you know, leading with kindness and empathy, I would like to see that extended to the fan base a little bit more when it comes to the leadership, like especially like Chris Getz, Will Venable, you know, Getz in terms of improvement year over year, Venable in terms of improving over Grifol. You know, Getz, I think, was able to compartmentalize and detach himself from the brutality of the season by trying to spin it in terms of like, well, you had to get this bad to get Jerry Reinsdorf's attention. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to make these improvements. And, you know, maybe that's true to an extent. Like maybe he just has to be like sufficiently embarrassed to make infrastructural changes. But at the same time, like the paying customers, what they had to watch, if you're factoring in like an hour commute in and out, you know, whether it's, you know, getting in and out of the parking lot and not paying for parking, paying for even like the bare minimum of just, you know, not like the whole family of 4 buys concessions and goes to the souvenir shop and buys, you know, jerseys, like that whole like packaging of, you know, what a family spends, but even just like a hot dog and a drink, you know, that's still a lot of money, a lot of time invested. And to watch the product that they watched, everybody could have shown more embarrassment. Maybe, you know, Getz just didn't feel like it. Maybe Grifol's incapable of it. But yeah, I think there was and then you factor in like, you know, losing Jason Benetti and, you know, Brooks Boyer not sounding all broken up about that. It just, there are a lot of ways I think that the fan base just felt like, who's listening here? And does anybody realize how bad this is, whether it's the broadcast, whether it's the, you know, what we're watching, what we're paying to watch. And so, you know, whether it's the team improves enough to be like a credible bad major league team, but one that's competitive and occasionally surprises, or just one where if it is another like 50 something win season, maybe just a little bit more empathy, a little bit more humility when it comes to just saying like, yeah, we're putting forth a piss poor product and people shouldn't have to pay for it. Just something along the lines of just speaking to fans a little bit more, and somebody in a leadership role doing that to make it a little bit more either palatable or just showing some form of connection with the fan base, because I think that really got severed last year in multiple ways. And you can't count on getting that back. Like we've seen that before, like with the strike in the 90s, like the White Sox were really damaged by that. And this could be, it's not the strike. It's not something that severe. It was, everything, all the failure was on the field. But still, when you just insult your fans that much with the effort they put forth and the roster they put forth, like you think there should be a little bit more of a direct acknowledgement of what they've been, asked to take.
I've been stressing this for years. The White Sox need a president. They need a president that overlooks both Brooks Boyer and Chris Getz, because Boyer's not going to do that, because that steps on the baseball ops team's toes and that creates conflict. And Chris Getz is not going to do that because he's a baseball guy. He's not a marketing guy. That's not his job. That's Brooks's job, to market the team in a way that brings fans into the stadium. The only one that's looking over both is 89-year-old Jerry Reinsdorf. Oh, he's 88 right now. He'll be 89 in February. That doesn't work. I mean, every other sports organization in the city has a president that would be handling that type of messaging, that would be overlooking both your marketing revenue, personnel, and the team operations and making that decision. I mean, that for the Bears, there's a lot of attention to Kevin Warren right now, because Kevin Warren's supposed to deliver a new stadium because he answers to the McCaskies, but he's got a tire fire right now, a situation on the field as well. He may need not only to find a new head coach, but also may need to find a new general manager. But the White Sox desperately need someone like that, because that's the one, Jim, to deliver your empathy. So I like your resolution. I can already tell you it's going to fail. I don't think you'll be happy with anyone that they currently have being able to deliver that.
Yeah, maybe Venable will just have a better way about it than Griffol's just unwillingness to admit any kind of failure that could reflect poorly on him.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the manager's job, but you do make a good point. Made the new guy being
just something. Yeah, like a lot of personnel with the White Sox at various levels could throw different size bones to the fan base once in a while. And Venable, has a way he can do it himself.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe it will have to be him. It should be Chris Getz, but he's not a marketing guy. I don't think he knows how to do that. For the White Sox, 1, win 15 games against American League Central opponents. Last year, the White Sox were 10-42 against the American League Central. And to add on to that, how about win more than one game against the Kansas City Royals and Minnesota Twins? Because the White Sox were 1-12 against both those teams last year. So, James, if they win 2 games against the Royals and Twins in 2025, they have at least doubled their win total from last year against those teams. How are we feeling about my resolution? Can they win 15 or more games against the division in 2025?
Yes.
That's what I'm looking for. Yes. Optimism.
Not a high bar.
It should not be a high bar. 15-37 against your own division is awful, but if they're going to be better than last year, you got to play better against your division. 10-42. Half of those wins were against the Cleveland Guardians somehow.
That's probably going down.
If you are one, and like our friend Beefloaf has put way too much money, in my opinion, on the White Sox over 49.5 wins. If you didn't see his post on FromThe108.com, he wrote about how you put $1,000 bet that the White Sox are win 50 or more games. In order for my friend Beefloaf to cash that bet, I think the White Sox need to score more than 615 runs in 2025. That is a 108-run improvement from what they scored in 2024. It's still below the run production that they had in 2023. But 507 runs, oh, man, it's so close. If it wasn't for that good last week of the season, they may have not scored 500 runs in a season. But if you are one of those White Sox fans thinking that they're going to win 50 or more games in 2025, Jim, I think they're going to need to score 615 runs to make that happen.
Did you pick a 108 run improvement in honor of Beef Loaf?
This could be the 2025 steak dinner bet, Jim. I may set it at 614 and a half runs that the White Sox score.
Just reinvesting the savings from winning the last one.
Shut up, James.
Just different ways of showing like he didn't need that dinner after all. And just every twist of the knife. Yeah, it's
yep.
All these improvements, like they show like 2 wins against the Twins, 2 wins against Kansas City. You're asking to basically a 50% improvement on their win total in the division, but still like it'd be just, god awful. Even after that, like there should be, that's why the 49.5 win projection is so stunning, because it should be easy. It should be easy to win 54 games, 55 games, like most teams, just about every team ever has done that. And all it takes is like one good thing happening basically in order to turn around. Like there are very few, the only good things that happened were like, the starting pitching, I would say. It was all contained in the starting pitching when it comes to good things. Crochet, Fetty, Cannon, a little bit of Burke, a little bit of Davis Martin here and there. But just like those are all subject to the bullpen and the defense and lack of offense. Like they could only pitch 5-6 innings, or in Crochet's case, 4 after the All-Star break. And then they were just left to be exposed to the elements of just the worst offense since 1972, and a bullpen that was just completely rudderless. The defense had no idea where they were supposed to be standing, and then couldn't make up the ground when they were standing in the wrong place. All it takes is like just a little bit of sharing the load. Like rotation could be okay, or at least could be competitive on a daily basis, to where like if the defense is better, a few more runs scored, one reliever steps up, all of a sudden, like that's a 55 win team, right? So like it doesn't feel like asking too much, but having seen what we just saw, it does feel like 49.5 is pretty damning. And again, like that's where the empathy comes in, or just like being like, oh, this is what the White Sox have built is pretty astonishing.
Again, when you score only 507 runs and you only win 41 games in 2024, if you want this team to win 50 or more games in 2025, I think they got to score more than 600 runs. That's why my resolution for them, score more than 615 runs in 2025. I think that will go a long way to getting this team back in the mid-50s. Dare I say, getting closer to 60 wins. That would be a huge improvement for the White Sox from 2024 to 2025. My last one for the White Sox, and it coincides with the more run production. Someone hit 25 home runs. Anyone. I don't care at this point. Someone hit 25 home runs in the season. It is so pathetic that we had to wait until the last week of the season to see if anyone would out-homer Paul DeJong when he was traded months ago. We don't want to live through that. Somebody hit 25 home runs.
Who can it be? Who do you feel has the best chance?
Tim Elko.
27 hits, 25 homers.
And then he hit 20 and took the last day off. Like, maybe he was good for 5 on the final day. You don't know.
Oh, that would have been great. That would have been great. But somebody.
Along the same lines, like among the, I would say, more esoteric resolutions is having written about the second round draft picks, and Gavin Sheets having a case of being the White Sox second round draft picks in 20 years. Like, I'm kind of looking at Jonathan Cannon, Sean Burke among third rounders, and seeing like Addison Reed being like the best third rounder they've drafted in that same time frame, and just looking at them like it'd be nice if like a White Sox second day draft pick stepped up and just provided some value below the. I think Cannon can do it. I think Burke can do it. Like even go to day 3 with Davis Martin. Just there's some possibilities for some draft boards when you look at like Baseball Reference of just the annual draft production from White Sox draft classes. There's a way that these guys can make it look markedly better. Like I had the similar hopes for Romy Gonzalez during his brief ascendancy, and then he rose like a meteor and crashed like a meteor. I'm seeing like the same thing with like, Davis Martin was close and then, got pulled back to earth. And the same thing with like Burke. Like he's got that, hell of an audition last year, but, can he sustain it? Can Cannon, get by with like his big bag of tricks to just continue like getting weak contact and throwing 150 or so like decent innings year after year? But it would be cool for one of these guys to just step up and show that the White Sox have the ability to produce talent internally without like needing like great draft lottery fortune in order to do it. And even then, like that only produces league average players at best. That's what I'm looking at as the White Sox try to produce players and produce a next core, or at least a roster that doesn't require so much free agency help.
Well, as you mentioned, the second round, the newly married, congratulations, Peyton Pallett. If he debuts this year, which, kind of a bunch of innings and then pitching the AFL kind of sets him up to do, and he finishes with a positive WAR, he will instantly be the best White Sox second round pick since 2010. Even if he finishes with a .1. So big opportunity for that to stand out.
Love it. So James, do you have any other White Sox resolutions, or do you have any personal? Do you carry personal New Year's resolutions?
It's never been a ritual, but I was reading the rundown while sitting in my car earlier tonight, and I was thinking about personal resolutions and also thinking about stories from the season. And I want to say it's September, maybe it's August. The earlier it is, the worse. I walked up to like the club level because I thought the media dining food didn't look great. I was just going to get a burger. And I walked up to the register, and the clerk there read my order out to me before I could say it. And I thought, that's not good. That needs to change.
So what was the order?
Just burger and fries.
Okay.
So trying to excise French fries from my diet in 2024. But the White Sox season pushed me along. Both in their sparse crowds, making it that I'm often interacting one-on-one with the same person at the club level, but also just seeing an awful year in terms of a particular result and thinking this could get better with minimal effort.
All right, I like it. Jim, you got any other White Sox or personal resolutions?
No, White Sox is basically just get a hold of yourself. I think that's, what it all boils down to. It's just, grabbing them by the shoulders and giving them a good shake. And, like, it's like the scene in an airplane where everybody just lines up.
Yeah, it's just thinking.
Yeah, that's where they're at. Personal, my son starts preschool next month. So I'm looking forward to getting my mornings back and being like, oh, I'll be able to do more. I'm well aware that now we'll be opened up to getting sick every other week because of just the way viruses get passed around. So this is me stating like hubris will not get the best of me here. I understand that like there's a Pandora's box being opened in terms of like what he's going to bring home, but also there'll be like from 8 to 3:30 or, if 8:30 to 3, depending on the commutes and such, like have a lot more time to just, think and respond to stuff and put stuff out there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to making good use of that time. Unrelated to the White Sox stuff, I have a resolution to finish the Powerbroker. I'm about 800 pages in. It's 1,300 page book, biography of Robert Carroll, biography of Robert Moses, the guy who built modern New York. My son had a sleep regression, so my nighttime reading got screwed up. Tried the audiobook version. Really hard. First of all, the audiobook is, I don't know how many hours, like I have 20 hours left on it and I'm more than halfway through. So there's that. And I've never really like lived the audiobook lifestyle, but I can see it being like appealing for like a good fiction book, like a page turner. I could see it being just as addictive in audio form. Problem with the Powerbroker, aside from it being so long, is you're reading about an awful person in great detail. The reporting of the book is, it's why it won Pulitzer. It's just like the reporting is astounding. The detail is astounding. How much time he devotes to just, finding out how he did what he did and all the, whether it's like bill drafting or financial, how he wrangled up public money and what public officials he got over a barrel. Like all of it's great reporting. But when you're reading about somebody being an a-hole, like just, when you're reading it, like just in text, you can kind of like glance at a paragraph, like still being an a-hole, still being an a-hole, still being an a-hole. Okay. A little bit lighter or a little bit of a pivot. So we're like, okay, now I can go back to reading every word. Whereas in the audiobook version, you're there every word of just, brutal detail about somebody who's just ruining the city with highways and being like, don't build that highway. Don't cut off waterfront access. That's a huge mistake. Don't add a lane. Don't build your highway so that light rail can't be added to it. This is all a huge mistake, and there's no way to avoid it because this all happened, 70 years ago or longer. But still, like in audiobook form, a really hard hang. There's some chapters are better than others, but if you get the wrong chapter, like you want to turn it off and listen to a comedy podcast or something like that to get out of that mode. So, fortunately, like I should have more time to read. So that's number one on my list is to finish the Powerbroker. Excellent book. Not regretting it, but also, sleep regression, poorly timed.
If you want to vision somebody listening to the Powerbroker audiobook while playing Red Redemption 2 for 7 hours out of the day, you have a good idea of my post-layoff headspace in 2023.
Did you finish Red Redemption 2?
I finished both items.
I guess that would be, as long as you're doing something else. But yeah, when I'm lying in my son's room waiting for him to go to sleep, I'm staring at the ceiling, listening to every word. That's when it gets a little bit just every sentence just pounds the point home further that this is somebody that should be It's good that Caro wrote about him because otherwise he would have been forgotten. He deserves to be remembered for basically all the wrong reasons.
It took longer because I had to like rewind when I would obviously get confused while listening to old Western dialogue and the very deep voice narration of the power brokers and very dense text simultaneously. But it was good. It's good to stare into the void.
Yeah, the good news is I'm reading it along with the 99% Invisible podcast. It's doing like a monthly episode where they review like 100 pages of it, and so like basically, it's taken so long to read that by the time I catch up on a section I read, like, oh, this is all refreshing the material for me. So even if I did forget about it, trying to read it, there's at least something catching me up.
You get so familiar with them that like later portions become almost like a sitcom where the studio audience knows all the jokes, or it's like. This small, poor black neighborhood wants a park next so the kids can play. What will Robert Moses do? We know what he's going to do, don't we? And
he busts through the door Kramer style.
Exactly.
Well, for me, for the third year in a row, I'm going to learn how to kayak. I'm not going to read the Powerbroker. I'll wait for Jim's final review when he finishes it.
Listen to the audiobook while kayaking.
I could do that. They're right by the Bridgeport Arts Center now. There's a kayak company. They do lessons. I've talked about this the last 2 years when we've done this episode. Damn it, it's going to happen finally. I'm going to learn how to kayak. I'm also going to Bozeman, Montana for our annual Dudes trip where my buddies and we spend a weekend together. We'll be in Bozeman, Montana. So that'll be another opportunity as well to learn how to kayak. And the big one for me, get below 215 pounds by my 41st birthday. That is approximately 27 pounds from where I am currently. And I'll be joining James in eliminating French fries from the diet to see if we can get down to that number. That's a big number for me.
Peloton challenges abound.
Many Peloton challenges. I'm already planning on switching over my television service because YouTube TV will not be carrying CHSN. I think as a season ticket holder, I'll still be getting a free subscription. We'll see if that holds true, like the Bulls and Blackhawks fans. See how that works on the bike or treadmill. But yeah, during road games, lots of Pelotoning, either walking or on the bike during White Sox road games. You guys could definitely join me. If you have a Peloton, I'm at Sox Machine Josh if you want to try to keep each other honest for our 2025 fitness goals. But that's what we have for you guys in our final podcast episode of 2024. Again, thank you guys so much for listening and engaging in our work, visiting soxmachine.com every single day. Even though the White Sox were awful, this was still a pretty successful year for us over at Sox Machine, and that is in large thanks to you, our listeners and readers. And here's hoping that 2025 is a lot better for the White Sox, but also still more enjoyable in the community that we have built together at soxmachine.com and all White Sox fans, as well as we'll have more watch parties, more events. We have the Pittsburgh road trip coming up that we are already planning. We'll have more details. If you haven't signed up for the interest form, that's also in the podcast page on soxmachine.com. Fill that out as the Pittsburgh Pirates single game tickets go on sale on January 15th, 2025. And we're all going to try to buy tickets together for that weekend when the White Sox visit the Pittsburgh Pirates on July 18th to the 20th in 2025. That is the series after the All-Star break. We all hope to see you in Pittsburgh in 2025. But again, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode and all the episodes that we did in 2024. If you just discovered the Sox Machine podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. You can also listen and watch the show on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. Follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms at Sox Machine, also including Blue Sky. You can follow James at JR Fegan. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. If you enjoy our work and want full access to our coverage of the Chicago White Sox and Major League Baseball, you can get full access along with ad-free versions of the podcast and the website at patreon.com/Sox Machine, where monthly plans start at $5. Sox Machine Podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis and James Fegan, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.